Now, for many of us, using a cell phone is something we can do wherever we want, whenever we want, however we want. But what's it like in the world's most closed society, North Korea?
VOA Korean service reporter Yonho Kim investigated that exact question. In cooperation with the U.S. Korea Institute of Johns Hopkins University, he authored the report, Cell Phones in North Korea. And our On Assignment's Philip Lexio sat down with him to find out what he learned.
Now, this report, Cell Phones in North Korea, on this picture, you've got a couple of North Koreans using a phone.
Right.
How difficult was it for you to put this report together? I think it's a 54-page report. What were the challenges in doing a report like this to cover something like mobile phone use in North Korea in a closed society where it's difficult to get the information?
As you said, it's closed society, and we don't have much information about that, what's going on right now there. So I had to rely on my interviews with North Korean defectors who actually used the cell phone in North Korea. But it's very difficult to find those people because they should be people who relatively recently defected. And among them, again, it's not that easy to find somebody who actually used cell phone in North Korea. So that's the big challenge, and I guess that's one of the reasons that I was not able to find any most updated references on this specific issue. So it was just starting from the scratch for me.
What are people getting out of the use of these cell phones? Because there are controls.
The government already decided to let people, more and more people get the cell phone, their own cell phones. So nowadays, even poor people really wants to have their own to show off their wealth, if you will. I mean, it's one of the most noticeable example of conspicuous consumption in North Korea. So one of my interviewees said he is a defector who actually used a cell phone in North Korea, told me that cell phone became very so popular that if you don't have cell phone, then you really have hard time finding a girlfriend.
Is that right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of prestige behind having a cell phone. And how badly do North Koreans want a cell phone? What do they do to get one?
Oh, they sell their hard-earned crops, or even
Really?
and they also get some people who have their relatives settled down in South Korea, basically defectors, and getting some money from them. They have some foreign currencies, so with that money, they can afford to buy some cell phone.
They're clamoring to get it, yet they are careful with what they say on the phone, right?
Sure. I mean, the North Korean people, they just believe they're under surveillance all the time, so they won't say anything politically inappropriate or sensitive over the phone.
Now, what about the state? What about the regime? What about Kim Jong-un? Because it's interesting that cell phone use is on the rise. This is a country of 25 million people. It's moving up to about 10% of the people using it, over 2 million. But he's getting something out of it. What is he getting out of this?
He's basically claiming that they have accomplished their national goal of transforming their country to a strong and prosperous nation.
So do you think he's doing this because the state, as you mentioned in your report, is also now able to collect more revenues? Is that right?
Sure. I'm not sure whether that was the most important part of their plan when they decided to introduce this mobile technology. But obviously, the government has exclusive right to sell the handsets.
Well, and in your subtitle, I'll ask you, has North Korea entered the telecommunication revolution? What say you?
I guess I would say the North Korean people are far away from the threshold of telecommunications revolution. But from their point of view, it's really a big cultural shock. I mean, for example, taking picture with your tiny little phone that's amazing. That's really pleasant surprise to them. They were not actually interested in sending photos, or they're not aware of the capability of their phone, but they were really happy about taking pictures anytime, anywhere you want, and bring your cell phone to somebody who happened to have a color printer and have him print that out. That quick process was really shocking and pleasant to the people, and many people really enjoyed that service.
VOA Korean service reporter Yonho Kim. Now, he reports North Korean police often stop cell phone users on the street to search for what they describe as politically inappropriate content on their phones, which the police can then confiscate on the spot, and they can even send a phone user straight to prison.
This is unbelievable.
So crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.